Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're continuing our deep dive into the AURELIA Atlas of Universal Unity. Our previous explorations established why maps matter and what this extraordinary atlas actually seeks to achieve. But today, we're taking it a step further. We're going to build a new layer of understanding, stripping away the surface to look directly into the underlying architecture of existence itself.
So let's just jump right in with a massive, paradigm-shifting question. What if the map you use to see the universe is actually shaping the universe you see? I really want you to think about that for a second. We almost always assume a map is just a passive reflection of reality, right? Like a static drawing of what's already out there. But in this explainer, we're going to break down why that assumption completely misses the bigger picture. You see, a map is never just a simple representation of reality. It is a highly active information processing system. It organizes raw data, shapes our understanding, and literally changes how intelligence interacts with the cosmos. You aren't just holding a picture of the territory. You're wielding a tool that dictates how your mind processes the sheer complexity of the universe. And to truly wrap our heads around this, we need to break reality down to its foundational layers, starting with the science.
Let's start with layer 1, the ascent of complexity, our scientific foundation.
If we trace the breathtaking cosmic timeline, it starts 13.8 billion years ago at the very origin of the universe, a state of extreme density. From there, we jump to 4.5 billion years ago when our Earth formed from stellar remnants. Fast forward to the present day, the era of human understanding, where we are actively decoding the cosmos. And finally, we look ahead to the future, the dawn of digital sovereignty and the construction of future knowledge systems. But honestly, this isn't just a timeline of history. It's a story of escalating complexity. We are watching the universe develop highly organized structures out of absolute simplicity.
And that brings us to the beautiful scientific concept of emergence. It's like watching a giant puzzle organically put itself together. We move from basic atoms to solid matter to the fiery furnaces of stars, massive swirling galaxies, biological life, and ultimately human consciousness. Emergence is this incredible phenomena where wildly complex properties arise purely from simple components interacting with each other. Take the human brain, for example. It has roughly 86 billion glowing neural pathways. To put that into perspective, that is incredibly close to the estimated number of stars in our entire Milky Way galaxy. You're never going to find consciousness inside a single isolated neuron. But when those simple parts interact, following basic local rules, they produce a mind capable of mathematical reasoning, creativity, and love. The universe builds these organized structures through cascading patterns of information.
Which brings us to a fascinating, almost haunting, scientific and philosophical mystery. When you look at the fundamental constants of our universe, they appear perfectly calibrated to allow all this complexity to emerge. This is called the Anthropic Principle, the observation that the conditions and fundamental laws of the universe must be compatible with the existence of observers and knowledge systems. Think about it. If the physical laws were tweaked even a tiny microscopic amount, we wouldn't be here to map any of it. The universe is mysteriously tuned to allow beings who are capable of mapping it to actually exist.
Moving right along, we have layer 2, the observer inside the map. This is our philosophical foundation.
As we transition to this philosophical layer, we have to confront the ultimate observer problem. If the universe produces us, and we in turn produce the map, does our map just describe the territory, or does it actively influence how we understand the territory? To figure that out, we have to recognize what philosophers call epistemic boundaries. These are the strict limits where empirical, scientific knowledge ends and philosophical interpretation begins. Science is absolutely our most reliable tool for gathering empirical data, but it has its horizons. We can't measure absolutely everything. We have to acknowledge that the human observer is not standing safely outside the AURELIA Atlas peering in. No, we are inextricably, fundamentally part of the very system we are trying to map. Our cognition is fully embedded in the universe. Pushing against those boundaries of science, we're forced to ask a much deeper philosophical question. How does reality produce beings capable of mapping it? We aren't just asking, how do we map reality anymore? We are marveling at the fact that reality essentially woke up, evolved a brain, and started drawing a map of itself. We are quite literally the universe's process of self-discovery. That perfectly sets up layer 3 information as fundamental reality, the mathematical and algorithmic foundation. Exploring this mathematical layer really connects the whole shebang. We're looking at the astonishing idea that underneath all the physical matter and energy, information itself might be the fundamental organizing principle of reality. This brings us to physicist John Archibald Wheeler's famous hypothesis, known as it from bit. Wheeler proposed one of the most provocative ideas in all of modern physics, that every physical entity, every single particle, every field, derives its very existence from underlying binary choices, from informational answers. In this view, the universe is, at its absolute deepest layer, a massive information processing system. Matter is really just what information looks like when it gets highly organized.
And think about how all these vastly different scales act as powerful information compression systems. DNA encodes 3 billion base pairs of cellular instructions just to build a human body. The brain stores vast neural patterns. Civilization transmits culture across generations. Digital systems organize algorithmic logic. And maps? Maps compress spatial geometry and massive conceptual frameworks. Every single one of them is doing the exact same thing, organizing and processing information to combat chaos.
Ultimately, we have to start viewing knowledge as architecture. Without getting bogged down in all the technical complexity, we can see that mathematics and algorithms, things like fractals, topology, complex networks, and information flow, are really just the languages we use to describe these subtle, beautiful patterns embedded in reality. The real goal here is understanding. Because once you realize that the cosmos runs entirely on information, you realize that protecting that information, including your own memories and digital footprint, is absolutely paramount. Protecting knowledge is the single most important task of any advanced civilization.
And finally, we arrive at layer 4, digital sovereignty and human meaning, our foundation of faith and preservation.
This is where faith, human meaning, and the preservation of our collective memory all intersect. Presented purely as a moment of profound spiritual reflection, there is a beautiful verse, "And say, my Lord, increase me in knowledge." This reminds us that the pursuit of knowledge is a path of deep humility. In the broader context of human meaning, seeking knowledge isn't just about hoarding data. It's driven by intense curiosity and a profound human responsibility to understand the cosmos we inhabit. We are the stewards of the information we gather.
But look at the stark contrast we face right now. Currently, our collective human knowledge suffers from what we call centralized fragility. We are completely dependent on external infrastructure. Centralized platforms govern us, and our data is incredibly prone to being lost forever if a central server just happens to go down. To protect our meaning and our history, we absolutely must move toward digital sovereignty. This means building deterministic systems, establishing offline first memory, and creating autonomous preservation. It's about actually owning your digital existence without having to rely on some fragile central authority. And this concept maps directly to the ultimate goal of the AURELIA Atlas. The AURELIA architecture is designed for exactly this purpose, transforming isolated fragments of fragile data into unified, sovereign systems of enduring human knowledge. It is the autonomous preservation of universal unity. It ensures that the map of our existence, this incredible, vast information processing system we've built, survives, thrives, and always remains safely in our hands. We've seen how a map is not just a picture, but a highly active participant in shaping our interaction with a deeply complex, informational universe. But this brings us to the threshold of our next great discovery. If understanding maps changes the bigger picture, then what does the bigger picture actually reveal? That is episode 0004, What Does Why Maps Matter Really Reveal?